3D printing is way overused.
It's way overused. Actually, it's good for like prototyping or something. It's like, I want to be on the battlefield and be like, I'm going to go 3D print in my shipping container a repair part. That's tough.
Sometimes like an autoclave for composites is the right solution.
You're an industry expert. Why do you think it's so popular right now? In the Pentagon, it's pretty popular.
Just a lot of buyers, they just think it's cool and like don't have any framework of reference of like, hey, is this a better hunk of metal over here this way, or is this a better hunk of metal over here that way? So I think a lot of buyers don't understand.
Hey, Steve and JD, I know you guys don't feel like 3D printing is important technology for the Department of War to invest in. So I'm going to enlighten you today on why it is. There's an interceptor called the P-1 Sun. It's built on a modular 3D printed airframe. To date, it is down over 3,500 Russian Shaheeds over the last 6 months. That's roughly 20 interceptors being used successfully per day. It is being sustained with 3D printing in a live real-world environment. Why they've chosen this model is that they've been able to effectively scale their production units up to almost 15,000 per month using this type of 3D printing. One of the pieces of feedback we've been given from almost every branch of the military is while we're procuring tons of drones, there really is no sustainment plan here. Some of these end users are waiting 3 to 4 months for repair parts. Now, if you can't train, you can't actually fight. And that's where there's a ton of interest in using additive manufacturing. You're clearly going to be able to get massive amounts of scale through centralized manufacturing using injection molding and stuff like that. But it's what happens in the field and how do you sustain things in the field, or heaven forbid you get into a shooting war where all your fixed manufacturing lines are attacked or blown up. That is where decentralized 3D printing makes the most sense. Look at how the war in Ukraine has been fought by both the Russians and the Ukrainians building print farms with thousands and thousands of 3D printers to not only build drones, but to build, fix, and modify things in the field. We have tons of pictures, and we'll put some up here, showing 3D printers in bunkers actually on the front line. That's how important 3D printing has become to modern warfare. How they're framing the discussion assumes logistical superiority. And we know that that's actually an issue here because the Department of War has made contested logistics one of the top 6 priorities for them moving forward. Contested logistics means you don't have logistical superiority. It means you can't fly things in, you can't drive things in, you can't move them in on boats. And so what we've actually seen here, driven in part by the war in Ukraine and also what we're seeing in Iran, is a need to move things closer to the point of need. And what does that mean? That means regional manufacturing centers and then distributed manufacturing to support those centers. We have countless examples of legacy parts that are basically out of the supply chain because you are making the assumption that the defense industrial base is actually functioning, and it is clearly not right now. The second thing is we're seeing soldiers design products to solve problems in the field that allow them to complete their mission or allow them to put gear that is broken down in the field back into play. The wait time for these products, it's not in the days, it's not in the hours, it's in the months. Months to get products that you and I could go to an auto store and buy are keeping multi-million-dollar vehicles down and preventing soldiers from doing their job. One of the parts that we made for the Navy, they told us in our review, we were 5,000 times faster than the current OEM. And what that meant is that the vehicles we were printing parts for would be out of service until we had this. And so part of the response in how they viewed our industrial 3D printing in a box capability is that if you could put this closer to the point of need, and maybe it doesn't need to be right on the battlefield, but closer to the point of need, you're going to cut down the logistical tail. And that's super crucial because contested logistics is real. And we have not fought a war where we didn't own the air, the land, or the sea from a logistical tail standpoint, probably since the end of World War II. So Steve, you made a point that like you thought it was really dumb to go into a shipping container full of 3D printers and make a part. I would argue that like that actually saves lives and allows people to do missions better and faster. Let me tell you a quick story. We had this conversation with a Navy SEAL commander about how when he was in Yemen, one of his vehicles broke down. He had to wait for a part to be flown from the United States back to fix that vehicle. A part that, in his opinion, he could have bought at an O'Reilly or an AutoZone. And I asked him, like, what do you think this costs? And he said, well, it's $1 million a day to keep a platoon in the field. And then it was probably $700,000 or $800,000 of fuel. So for the 3 days he waited for a simple $500 part, it probably cost him $3.8 million and actually kept him in danger because he was stuck in the middle of the Yemenis desert. How's that for a proof point? I think one of the big themes here too is that we shouldn't be prescriptive about the type of manufacturing solution that's going to be required to solve a problem. If we think that way, that'll limit our ability to solve a problem. And the Ukrainians and Russians have not done this. The Chinese are not doing this. They are saying that we should be turning on all aspects of our manufacturing. And so to be dismissive of additive manufacturing, which is already being used in Ukraine and Russia right now, at the point of need to solve real world problems on the battlefield, is going to inhibit our ability to effectively wage war against our enemies around the world.